move down if you want, since Teresa's not here. It's up to you.
Yeah. Then I won't be.
Depending on how strict Gwen is.
I know how strict are you gonna be?
Stay in your chair.
Yeah, with a straight face.
Everybody ready? Yeah. Are they still setting up? Do you know? I believe that they're. Okay.
Okay.
What's that? I don't know. We'll see.
Mister, go ahead and start. Start.
Recording in progress.
All right, I'll call us to order. Let's start with roll call. Board Member Randall.
Present.
Board Member Riel.
I'm here participating remotely.
Thank you. Board Member Barraza.
Present.
Vice Chair Bernal Morales.
Present.
I'm here as well. All right, so let me call up one of our students, Zamir Azizi, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. If everyone could stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And could I also have another one of our students, Marisa Pinon Manriquez, to read our land acknowledgement?
Pima Community College is on the original homelands of the Tohono O'odham people and the Pasquayaki, who have stewarded this land since time immemorial. The practice of acknowledging the land of these sovereign nations brings to the forefront their enduring connection to this land, regardless of historical and current colonization practices. Let's acknowledge that we all benefit from these lands on which we work and learn. I encourage each participant today to learn about the land we inhabit, the tribal communities connected to this land, and the ways in which you can contribute to restorative practices related to land and community.
Thank you both. I really appreciate it. Dr. Irene Robles Lopez, would you come to the podium and introduce our Mission Moment group?
Good evening, Board Chair Taylor, board members, Dr. Nassi, students, guests, and colleagues. It is my pleasure to introduce our mission moment for this evening, our Student Senate. Our Student Senate is an integral part of Pima Community College. Our student senators serve as a bridge between the student body and college administration. They advocate for the common needs and interests of our students, and they also advocate and guide, provide feedback on student activities to help support students. So at this time, I would like to call up my colleague, Dr. Suzanne Desjardins, our Vice President of Student Affairs, who will then introduce our student senators for this evening. Thank you.
Good evening, Board Chair, Chancellor, colleagues, guests, Board of Governors, students. I would like to introduce our leadership team. So Connor McNett and Ariana Reese, if you would please stand. They are our co-leads for the Student Senate. Valerie Vidal-King, our Director of Student Engagement, and Jennifer Madrid, our Dean of Students. This is our team. It takes a village to work with our Student Senate and really bring forward all of the wonderful work that they're doing. And they are our shared governance group. Team, feel free to sit. Thank you. They are a shared governance group, so they are elected by the student body. We have elections once a year. When we don't fill all 12 student senator seats, we have off-cycle elections, which we're in the process of doing, and then we have our wonderful Board of Governors representative, as you have met, and so that seat is another one of the important seats that they fill. So it is my pleasure to introduce to you two of our stellar student senators this year, Marisa Pinon Manriquez and Zamira Azizi, and they are going to talk to you about their leadership development as senators and some of the projects that they have brought to fruition as part of Student Senate. Thank you.
I would like to introduce our 2024-2025 Student Senate members. Nicole Camacho, our amazing chair and downtown campus senator. Marisa Manriquez, our co-chair, ACC representative, and West Campus senator. Myself, Zamir Ahmed Azizi, marketing officer and downtown campus student senator. Jasmine Acosta, secretary and Pima online student senator. Miguel Saracha, project lead and East Campus student senator. Thank you.
All right. Hello, board. My name is Marisa. During this year, as a student senator, I've learned many different things. One of those things being leadership and public speaking. And I feel I have developed in those ways greatly since I first started, because when I first started, I would not have chosen to come up here and talk to you all. But I did learn some other stuff this year as well. I learned how to network with a lot of my other students. I made a lot of good connections with both faculty and students. This also I also assisted in a student project that we did as the Student Senate body, where we helped our ARC food pantry in supplying more hygiene items. So we did hygiene drive pop-ups to help students with those extra needs that they may have at each campus. I also got the chance to collaborate on different committees, one of those being the Chancellor's Goal Committee and the All College Council Committee as well. And I also gained valuable public speaking experience because now I can come up here and do this way easier than I would have before.
All right, so for the last year that I did Student Senate, it was a great opportunity for me. It was an incredible, rewarding experience that helped me grow personally and professionally. I come from a background of refugee. English is my fourth language. So when I started college, I started from ESL program. Pima really helped me personally and professionally. After I started Student Senate, it really gave me what I needed, the confidence in public speaking, which I'm doing right now, as I'm practicing right now. I gained confidence in public speaking, learned how to listen actively and advocate for our students. And I improved my communication skills through events like tabling, which we did in every campuses, and town halls. One of my proudest individual accomplishments was collecting student feedback and presenting it to the campus leadership, helping raise awareness of student concerns. I enjoyed building strong friendships with my team, especially during fun moments like our team retreat, decorating event tables, and sharing laughs during planning sessions. This experience not only taught me leadership and teamwork, but also left me with unforgettable memories and deeper connection to my campus community.
So during our term as a student body, we've done a lot of things. We have held regular and working meetings once a month each, so 2 meetings a month. We also met with each of our campus vice presidents at least once a month. We hosted 2 town halls to allow students to ask questions, submit any comments or concerns, so we can bring those forward to some campus officials. We tabled across all of our campuses, some of us even going to other campuses as well. We completed the Student Senate project, attended the Board of Governors meetings, the All College Council meetings, and we partnered with Student Affairs for the Chancellor's Goal. We collaborated with Student Life and First Year Experience, and we had a breakfast with the Chancellor on May 5th.
Our elections, we will host our election for 2025. Okay, I think we're, okay. We'd like to take time to thank some of our folks, some of our amazing folks at PCC. Thank you to the Student Life team for your support this year. Thank you to the Student Affairs staff for involving us in their goal of improving communication with students. Thank you to the Board of Governors for allowing the students' voice to be heard. Thank you to all college council for providing a space for student representation. Thank you to our mentors who took time out of their schedules to meet with us and help us with our professional development. Thank you to the Chancellor Nasse for meeting with us and learning about the important work the Student Senate does.
Thank you all so much for your service to the college. We really appreciate all the time that you put into it, and it really does make a big difference for all your fellow students, so thank you. I really appreciate it. Any questions or comments for our mission moment folks from the board? No? All right, not hearing any. The next item on the agenda is the audit results for fiscal year 2024 presentation by the Arizona Auditor General. We have two representatives from that office to join us.
I'm a little shorter. Good afternoon, Board Chairperson Taylor, members of the board, and Chancellor Nasi. I am Terrence Dangle, the Financial Audit Manager on the fiscal year 2024 audits, and joining me today is Renee Carrasco, who is the Deputy Manager on the 2024 audits. Thank you for having our office join your regular meeting today to present the audit results for Pima County Community College District. It is great to see you again, and for those that I haven't seen, it's nice to be here with you. So before we discuss the district's audits, I wanted to present information on the Arizona Auditor General's office background. The office is a legislative agency made up of nonpartisan staff. We provide impartial information and specific recommendations to improve the operations and programs of state and local governments, which includes Pima College. We are well-versed in follow standards, including government auditing standards. Similar to our previous presentations with the board, we are here today in accordance with Arizona Revised Statutes 1473, which directs the district governing board to require its auditors, the office, to present the audit results and any findings to the board in a regular meeting without a consent agenda within 90 days once the audit is complete. This is a great opportunity for us, as your auditors, to be in front of you and to provide information about our work and answer any questions that you might have. We sent communication to the board at the beginning of our fiscal year 2024 audit that outlines our responsibilities over the financial and the federal compliance audit. And I will walk through some of those responsibilities with you, followed by the district's responsibilities. As the auditor, our responsibility is to plan and conduct the audit of the district's financial statements and their federal compliance audits in accordance with U.S. generally accepted auditing standards, government auditing standards, and uniform guidance. To obtain reasonable assurance about whether the district's financial statements are free of material misstatement, reasonable assurance is high, but it's not absolute level of assurance. With that being said, there is a risk of not identifying material misstatements, and noncompliance is higher due to fraud from other than errors, because fraud may involve collaboration efforts to commit the fraud, management not using proper internal controls, and other factors. We did not identify any fraud during the fiscal year 2024 audits of the district. We consider internal controls relevant to the district's preparation and fair presentation of their financial statements and design appropriate audit procedures. We perform tests of the district's controls and compliance with certain provisions of laws, regulations, and grant agreements, and we communicate significant matters to both the financial statements and the federal compliance audits. And this is completed typically through communications that you receive directly from our office. We express an opinion concerning the district's financial statements. Their schedule of expenditures of federal awards were presented fairly in all material respects. And we also report any internal control deficiencies and instances of noncompliance to you. Now, the district's responsibilities is ultimately for the operations of the district, and then they typically ensure the following: to prepare and fairly present the financial statements, the related note disclosures, and all accompanying information in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles and uniform guidance. Design and implement those internal controls over the district's financial statement preparation and internal controls to prevent and detect fraud. Also, to take timely and appropriate steps to remedy control deficiencies, fraud, illegal acts, violations of contracts, or grant agreements of waste and abuse that we report. They are required to evaluate and monitor the district's compliance with laws and regulations, contracts, and grant agreements, having a direct and material effect on the district's financial statements and their administration of their federal programs. Follow up and take corrective action on any audit findings, which include providing the auditors with a corrective action plan and a summary status of any prior year audit findings. and then providing auditors with unrestricted access to staff, documentation, information systems, and any resources necessary to complete the audit. This also includes meeting any deadlines that were previously agreed to by the staff. Today, we will be discussing our audit work for 3 required annual reports: the district's annual comprehensive financial report, the report on the internal control and on compliance, and the federal single audit report. Together with the district, we initially established report issuance deadlines and issued the reports before the original deadlines of December 19th, 2024 and March 31st, 2025 for both the annual comprehensive financial report and the single audit report, respectively. I would like to thank the district staff for their prompt attention to our requests and to help complete these audits on time. As we have done in the past, when the annual reports were completed, we sent you a link to these reports through an email. The first was the district's annual comprehensive financial report, and that presented the annual financial statements and our opinion on them. The objective of the audit was to obtain reasonable assurance about whether those financial statements as a whole are free from material misstatement, whether due to fraud or error, and to issue that report that includes our opinion. And it is wonderful to report, again this year, for fiscal year 2024, we reported an unmodified or a clean opinion, which the district's financial statements are reliable. The second report was the report on internal control and on compliance. This is where we report any findings and recommendations resulting from the district's financial statement audit. The report includes one financial statement finding we found during our financial statement audit that Renee will go over with you shortly. And then the third report is the federal single audit report. This includes our assessment of the district's compliance with federal program requirements over each federal program that we subjected to audit, and the district's schedule of expenditures of federal awards, and our opinion on it. The objective of this report is to obtain reasonable assurance about whether the material noncompliance and with the compliance requirements occurred, whether due to fraud or error, and to express an opinion on the district's compliance based on those audits. Again, we issued an unmodified opinion on all the federal programs that we audited, which is a good thing, but we did identify one finding that we found, and we included it in that federal compliance report. And Renee will go over that also with you again shortly. Now, when we issue the single audit report, we also include report highlights. And that report highlight provides detailed information in a 2-page summary that you received with that report. The highlights included the district's primary revenues and expenses over a trend of 10 years, as well as our key findings and recommendations. I would like to take an opportunity to present some key financial information for the district over the last 5 years that we have highlighted. For revenues, the district has 4 main sources of revenues, which are property taxes, government grants and contracts, tuition and fees, and state assistance. And as you can see from the graph, the district's revenues from property taxes have steadily increased over the last 5 years. Between fiscal year 2023 and 24, we've noticed government grants and contracts did increase $4.7 million after it had decreased significantly in the prior year by $43.3 million. Because the district was no longer receiving those COVID-19 pandemic monies. State assistance did increase by $2.3 million in the last year. They received additional STEM and workforce development appropriations. And finally, tuition and fees has remained relatively unchanged. Overall, though, the primary revenues have decreased by $9.7 million. For expenses, you can see that the district has 4 primary expenses, which include instruction, institutional support, student services, and student financial aid. The district's instruction and student service expenses have increased since 2020, whereas the district cut spending for institutional support expenses by $3.8 million from fiscal year 23 to fiscal year 24. Finally, the student financial aid line item is affected by financial aid that is provided to students. Between fiscal year 23 and 24, we did see an increase of $2.8 million due to grants provided to students through the Student Financial Assistance Program. And the overall total expenses of the district have increased by $7.6 million from the prior year. Next, we have a graph that highlights the district's total revenues, expenses, and net position. through a 5-year trend. And as you can see, the revenues are in light blue and the expenses are in dark blue. And since fiscal year 23, the revenues of the district have been less than the expenses. Additionally, the black line on the bar graph represents total net position. The district's overall net position did decrease in this last fiscal year by $9.6 million from increased spending. The total net position for the district is $185.8 million as of June 30th, 2024. It is important to note that not all of this net position is expendable, though, because a portion of it is invested in capital assets. In addition, the district has a restricted net position that they can use for such items as debt service and grants of $15.9 million, and whereas the unrestricted balance is $41.3 million. On our final graph that we are presenting, I'd like to highlight the district's federal expenditures that are presented each year in the single audit report. Although the district does receive grants from 11 different federal agencies, as you can see, the U.S. Department of Education is the highest amount that you receive each year. And we can see that there was significant drops from fiscal year 2022 as the COVID funding did decrease significantly. Now I'm going to turn it over to Renee, and he is going to walk through our findings with you.
Good evening, Board Chair Taylor, members of the board, and Chancellor Nesse. My name is Renee Carrasco, and I'm the Deputy Manager responsible for the 2024 Pima College Community Audits. The first thing I want to talk about is a summary of the audit finding 2024-01. The report on internal control and compliance is where you will find the one financial statement finding along with the district's responses to them. The financial statement finding report was that the district did not restrict access to 4 to 16 counts to only authorized employees, increasing the risk of fraud and misuse of public monies. We noted 2 former employees were still authorized signers on investment accounts totaling $118.4 million. This occurred because the district did not have a formal process to immediately remove terminated employees' investment account access, including completing required forms to update authorized signers with the financial institutions. It did not have a procedure to periodically review and recertify access. To correct this finding, we recommend the district, 1, restrict investment account access to only authorized employees to safeguard public monies. 2, develop and implement policies and procedures to periodically review and recertify access to investment accounts, limiting the ability to perform confidential banking actions to only authorized employees. Immediately complete required forms to request investing financial institutions to remove all access for terminated employees, including the ability to be an authorized signer. Review financial institutions' access listings immediately after requesting the bank to remove access to verify that only authorized users remain. After we brought this to the district's attention, they removed the terminated employees' access for 2 of the 4 investment accounts. The district reported that it anticipates correcting this finding and implementing recommendations by March 31st, 2025. Moving on to the federal compliance finding. The single audit report is where you will find the one federal compliance finding along with the district's responses to them. For the federal compliance finding, we reported a finding for the Student Financial Assistance Cluster over its compliance with returning Title IV funds when students have withdrawn from the district. The district financial aid and scholarship department did not complete a calculation for 82 students who withdrew and received student financial assistance programs to determine if Title IV funds should be returned to the U.S. Department of Education. For one student selected in our sample, we determined that the department did not return $943 of student financial assistance Title IV funds. Additionally, the department's management reported that it identified an additional 81 students who received additional $153,318 in Title IV funds from whom they did not perform required additional calculations during the period November 2023 through June 30, 2024. This occurred because the district did not test changes to the student information system's automated controls that were made in November 2023 to not flag students who withdrew and required a return to Title IV calculation. To correct this finding, we recommend that District 1 perform calculations for all students who received Title IV funds and withdrew during the period November 2023 through June 2024 and immediately return all unearned aid to the U.S. Department of Education. 2, review and update the student information system's automated controls to properly identify and flag all students who receive Title IV funds and withdraw from the district. 3, test any changes made to the student information system and verify controls are operating as designed to comply with the student financial assistance cluster requirements. The district reported that it anticipates correcting this finding and implementing recommendations by June 30, 2025. All right. Lastly, I'm presenting on the status of prior year audit findings. As included in the single audit report is the status of prior year audit findings. In the prior fiscal year, we reported 2 financial statement findings. Our auditing standards require that we follow up on any prior year audit findings until the findings have been fully corrected. The first financial statement finding was related to purchasing card usage over food, beverages, and entertainment. The second financial statement finding was related to control procedures over IT systems and data. Both findings were fully corrected through the implementation of new policies and procedures. This here completes our presentation on the district's fiscal year 24 audit reports, including the 1 reported financial statement finding and the 1 federal compliance finding. At this moment, are there any questions that we can answer to you concerning the district's audits?
Any questions? Board Member Randall?
Chair Taylor, thank you so much. I just have one question for the federal compliance finding. Is that 82 students total where the calculation was not completed, or do you do a sampling for your audit?
I can answer it. Thank you, Chair Taylor, Member Randall. It actually included 82 students that they went back through and identified, so it's only 82 in the entire population.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? No? Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
I just want to thank Chancellor Nase, members of the governing board, and the board chair Taylor for allowing us to present our audit results and findings today. I'd also like to thank the district staff once again for their cooperation with the audits. We have had a professional working relationship with the district's management and staff, and we thank them very much.
Thank you both. I realized that I missed our photo with our students that were presenting our mission moment, so I was reminded we need to circle back and do that. So if we, excuse me, pause for a minute to take the photo. Yeah, they just moved over there to the back. I'd sit in the back too if I could, but I don't have that option. So if you want to come back down this way, we'll take a picture real quick and then we'll get back with the next item on the agenda. All right, moving on to 1.7 in the agenda. I don't have any public comment cards, so I just wanted to, so I assume that no one signed up for public comment, but I just wanted to make sure before we moved on. We didn't have any online either, I don't think so. All right, not seeing any public comment, we will move on to 1.8, the summary of current events by board members. Board Member Randall, do you have anything you want to share?
Just very quickly, and I think I might be getting a little ahead of myself, but I just want to congratulate all of the graduates who will be at commencement on the 21st. I know I'm so proud of every single one of you, and I know you're proud of yourself. So, like I said, getting a little ahead of myself, but I just want to put that out there. Oh, and congratulations to the ladies softball team. Go Aztecs.
All right, Board Member Real is virtual tonight, but do you have any comments for this period you want to share?
Yes, thank you. It's been a busy month, lots of activities going on, and I would like to also reiterate what Ms. Randall commented on. Your graduation is a super important time in your life where your family and your friends can come celebrate all the amazing things you've done. So I'd like to reach out to all of the students at Pima College who are graduating and to encourage you to come to our graduation ceremony at TCC next week. It's a lovely event and it's well worth making the memories. So congratulations. The last thing I would like to mention is that I am once again hosting, excuse me, my semi-annual member appreciation happy hour. And members, you should have received my invitation through your AFSCME, ACES, and PCCEA leadership. If you didn't get the invite, let me know, send me an email, and I will make sure you get the invite. So that's going to be on Monday, this Monday coming up. And we look forward to seeing you all at graduation. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Board Member Barraza, do you have anything you want to share?
Yes, I attended the Finance and Audit Committee on April 18th, and the committee voted on and approved Chair Taylor's recommendation to have a simplified financial report. This simplified report will highlight key expenditure categories and revenues. So we approved that. I want to highlight and also echo the committee's appreciation for the inclusion of the glossary of financial reports in our materials. This edition is truly outstanding, and the committee strongly recommended that it also be available online to make available for our community if they're looking at the financial reports and help them better understand what they're looking at. I think that making this easily accessible and understandable is key to having this transparency with our community and getting perhaps more community members involved and interested in looking at our budget. In addition, the two individuals from the Auditor General's office left, and I wanted to thank them. They also presented at our committee meeting and highlighted how the staff at the college is just great to work with. And so I want to give a small shout out to Dr. B, Jose Salamando, and the entire team for the work that they do. I think they make the information very accessible and provide great reports. So I just wanted to echo that. I was in attendance with several of you at the ACCT conference in Phoenix, which was a great opportunity to interact with other trustees from throughout the state and have really meaningful conversations. So appreciated that. And then also attended with several of you the downtown campus Student Leadership Award ceremony. Several of the students also who presented were given some awards, but I was really struck by staff and the faculty that provide so much mentorship, and so I think that was a very positive event, and I look forward, that was my first one, and I look forward to attending more of those.
Thank you. Vice Chair Bernal Morales.
I'd like to echo the congratulations to all of our graduates. It's a significant and celebratory accomplishment, so congratulations to all of you. I'd also like to congratulate Desert Vista Campus for the ribbon cutting of the Hospitality Leadership Center of Excellence. I had the opportunity to attend and celebrate and see the excitement not only of the students, but about all the people that were involved, whether it's the faculty, the staff, the community. It was really great to see so many people come together to celebrate and really showcase what Pima Community College provides, the opportunities we provide. So congratulations to them. I'm sure Chancellor Nancy will have a lot more to say about that. I'd also like to thank our government and community relations team, Libby and Joseph. Thank you so much for the opportunity and the invitation to participate in the visit with the U.S. Secretary of Labor, Lori Chavez de Ramier. It's the funnest part of our job is to showcase the great things that are happening here at Pima, and we were able to do that at a federal level, so that's always great. So thank you both for making sure that happened and inviting us to participate with that. As Board Member Barraza said, we had the opportunity to attend the Student Leadership Recognition Award. I'm so happy to see that. I wish that more people would participate in that. It is so cool to see so many of the senators, so many of the award recipients, so many people that come together to celebrate. I want to showcase that as much as we can. I'm all about celebrating people this month, I guess. And with that, I also had the opportunity to join Interim Provost Rourke. I'm so sorry, Ian. I'm so used to calling you Ian. And Chancellor Nassy for the Honors Award and Ceremony and PTK induction. That was actually a really cool ceremony to be part of that very ceremonial event and how meaningful it was to all of those students. So it was really a great experience for me to be able to be part of that and celebrate those students as well. There was one more thing and I forgot, but I will leave. I'm sure I'll remember at some other time, but I really want to say thank you to all of you, the faculty, staff. As we celebrate the students for graduating, I want to make sure that we remember to celebrate you all because you are all the power and the engine behind their successes. So thank you for all that you do, either as faculty or as staff. Everyone plays a role, and I think you all are a small and significant part of the success that the students have. So thank you for everything that you do.
Thank you. I won't belabor the point because I was involved in all the stuff that, well, some of the things that everybody else was involved in as well. But just to echo that thank you to our faculty, our adjunct faculty, our staff that support our students as we head into commencement and graduations. And congratulations to all those students who are earning a degree or certificate. We're incredibly proud of the work that you put in. We know you're going to do tremendously in whatever your next step is, whether that's a career or whether you're continuing your academic pursuits here or somewhere else. I'm looking forward to celebrating with you all next week as well as part of the commencement ceremony. And I'll also echo the thank you to both Congressman Siscomani and U.S. Secretary of Labor Lori Chavez DeRemer, who were able to visit some of our workforce development programs. We toured the automotive, advanced manufacturing. There was a small roundtable with business leaders who have been involved in the college to talk about those public-private partnerships with industry and the college's role as a driver for workforce development. So it's always nice to be able to brag on the good work, again, of our faculty and adjunct faculty and staff that support our students to train them with the skills they need for careers that are going to propel them and their families into the future to be able to support themselves and beyond. So I'm always excited to be part of opportunities where we get to brag on the college in that way. That being said, that's enough from me. So we'll move on to 2.1, which is the administration report. So the first one is Dr. Rourke to talk about the Higher Learning Commission Corrective Action Plan Framework.
Good evening, governing board members, chancellor, colleagues, peers, students, and guests. I think that, no, they're not here, and guests, except for the student here. So good evening. I'm here to give the update on our progress looking towards January 29th of 2027. Seems like it is far away, but it is not, in preparing for our monitoring report as a result of our recent Higher Learning Commission visit and reaffirmation. I always like to start this conversation with a reminder that we did well, right? We are on the standard pathway and we met all of the standards and criterion, but we met 2 of those with concerns, which subsequently requires us to have the monitoring report prepared for January. And another thing that I also like to talk about with respect to accreditation, much like any sort of audit or peer review process, is yes, it is about meeting the standards and it is about being compliant, but it is also looking for those opportunities to reach even further, aspire for higher standards, and meet those opportunities to improve. And we have some of those, and we also have a plan to address them. So the first criterion that we had met with concerns was criterion 3A, which speaks to the rigor of the institution's academic offerings and that they are appropriate to higher education. The context, if you go into the actual report, is actually number 3 of the criterion 3A, which speaks to a misalignment or a lack of evidence or processes with respect to our additional locations. As a reminder, our additional locations are those locations where 50% or more of instructional programs are occurring, as opposed to teaching sites where we have not yet met those, the 50% threshold. The majority of our additional locations are up through the workforce development offerings with community partners and also dual enrollment, which is the majority. So the plans that we have in place in the larger plan framework is, of course, attached in your board packet. Really, it was focused on what are the big things that we need to put into place that will allow us to collect the evidence, whether it's quantitative or whether it is in an event or whether it is a document or even qualitative, but gather the evidence needed to compile the report in the fall of 26 in preparation for submission to the Higher Learning Commission in January of 2027. In order to do so, all of these activities are designed to ensure that we can have at least one academic year for which we can put the systems in place and then gather the data or evidence needed to meet these criteria, being 3A and the next one is 4B, which we'll also talk about. So first of all, one of the things that was identified was that we need to ensure that all of our faculty, both full-time and adjunct, on our campuses, at our centers, but also at our teaching sites and additional locations, have the same standardized training and orientation as our full-time faculty and adjunct faculty do on our main campuses. That includes, and can sometimes currently be a challenge, that includes our high school faculty who are also under the auspices of dual enrollment adjunct faculty for the college. And so we will have the standardized faculty orientation in place and evidence gathered for the HLC. What's really interesting about the opportunity to improve and shore things up for our additional locations is that we internally are identifying things where this is going to help us overall as an institution, not just focusing on what's going on at those additional locations, but how can this professional development regimen and orientation be strengthened for all of our faculty all together. Then we also will track the faculty training and participation and ensure that no person is left behind with respect to the needed training and support. And finally, reviewing our intergovernmental agreements and educational services contracts to ensure that not only are we meeting our obligations as stated through those agreements, but that our external partners in all of these contexts also are informed of, and it is documented through these IGAs of their respected obligations to ensure alignment to the criteria as well. Criterion 4B is basically we engage in ongoing assessment of learning as a part of its commitment to educational outcomes and its students. And this really speaks to our program learning outcomes, our course learning outcomes. And what we found out during the visit was that many of our adjunct faculty at our additional locations were either not reporting on our course learning outcomes, or they didn't know what they were, or that it wasn't being used to drive improvement equally across all of our additional locations. And so another thing that was identified is that sometimes students, particularly those through the dual enrollment programs, did not know that they were fully a Pima Community College student as well as a student at their respective high school at the same time. And in fact, they are both as dually enrolled students. And so one of the improvement processes that will be put into place is that we will be moving toward a system where our high school dual enrollment students will move through our application process on their own with assistance, just like any other college students will. And this actually comes at a fortuitous time for us because through a number of areas of the college, we are implementing Element 51, which is allowing us to drive improvement in our application process so that it's more seamless for all of our students. And so I believe by October of 25, this process will be in place to start for our high school students and our additional location sites as well. Communication strategy refers to really educating and informing all of our faculty, including those at additional locations, both full-time and adjunct, about how we are using our assessment data to drive improvement in the curriculum and in the teaching and learning process and experience. And finally, training and structure for our academic leadership across the college, for department heads and others who are responsible for working with our adjunct faculty at these sites so that they, our own faculty, are fully supported with the tools and the systems that they need to be effective in their partnership and work with our additional locations, faculty, and teams. These speak to the action plans. If you go into the hyperlink document that you have in your board packet, some of the plans have not, the action plans under the framework have not yet been developed, and we will be updating you on those in a subsequent update on this whole process soon, but we wanted to make you aware of what is coming. One includes a dashboard of sorts to ensure that we don't inadvertently cross over from a teaching site into an additional location, and so that our teams who are monitoring all of our external activity have the tools they need to know we're getting close to the line where this may become an additional location, and we do not want to have any unreported or unidentified additional locations inadvertently. By October of 25, enhancing our student success and learning outcomes, so looking at the outcomes themselves and ensuring that they are driving toward true and measurable teaching and learning. And also evaluate our location oversight and accountability with a lot of reorganization. Sorry, my mouth is really dry. Can I go get a glass of water? All right. When your tongue is sticking to the top of your mouth, you just know it's time to get a sip of water. All right. And then finally, yeah, see, that sounds much better. Finally, evaluating whether or not all of the reorganization and the structures that we have put into place are really allowing our people and our teams to be effective at monitoring and evaluating what's going on at these additional locations. For 4B, what is going to come is after all of the reorganization and assessment of our existing leadership structures is done, publishing the organizational chart with defined responsibilities so that everybody who is involved with both teaching sites and additional locations knows what their responsibilities are and what the stated outcomes should or could be, and where assistance can be given. And finally, developing a strategic alignment for all teaching locations, really through our larger strategic planning efforts, ensuring that we are offering courses to the communities and partners who really need them in ways that increase access in our access opportunities in our community, and also ensuring that if we are not seeing, for example, a matriculation of high school students into the college, really identifying what is going on with that partnership, and how we can improve upon the matriculation and enrollment from dual enrollment into the college after high school graduation. And also finally ensuring under that strategic alignment that we have the resources that we need to meet the commitments that we are making to the community, and that we don't overcommit without ensuring those resources are there to begin with. This is a timeline of what it all looks, a high-level timeline of what it looks like all put together for the day that we are looking forward to in January, which is January 29th, 2027. So you can see some of the major highlights with respect to the framework, and then when we will be beginning to develop our report, give some updates to you as the governing board, and then our final submission. That concludes my update. If you have any questions, myself or a number of other team members are here.
Questions, comments from the board?
Chair
Board Member
Taylor.
Randall? Yeah.
Sorry, I seem to have a lot of questions today. First of all, thank you so much. Some of us newbies came in sort of at the tail end of this process. I've been really impressed with you and your team and just watching this unfold. And since I'm new to watching this process unfold, I just have a question. In 2027 in January, when those 2 monitoring reports are submitted to HLC, is there feedback that we expect to receive from them at that point? Do they approve them? Like, what does that look like? Or do we just send them and that's it?
Yeah, there would definitely be feedback. This is not going to happen because we are going to submit an excellent set of reports, but like say we did not meet their standards, there could be additional monitoring. In the worst case of scenarios, there could be sanction, but we are nowhere near that category.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Chair Taylor, Mr. Rourke, I have to concentrate too. Are there any amenities that, or things that students who are dual enrollment students off-site in other locations could take advantage of since they are officially Pima students? And I'm just thinking out loud here, given the gap between those students that take dual enrollment courses and those that actually enroll at the college, I was just thinking as you were presenting whether if there's something that we could do to get them on a campus while they're taking a class, a Pima class, if that sort of starts building a nexus with the student or the thought of enrolling here later on. It's maybe not a question, but just something that we might want to think of. But I am curious if they can take advantage of anything by being an official Pima student while they're on dual enrollment.
Yeah, it's a great question, Board Member Rasa. And the answer is that we do some, but we are also inconsistent there with respect to a comprehensive approach to improving upon our outreach to high school students as well as those that are in dual enrollment programs. And so what we want to do, and this is outside the scope of this particular plan, but there are other things underway with respect to making sure that we have a more comprehensive and strategic approach and an all-hands-in approach to basically, ensuring that they have that level of connectivity to our campuses. And that also needs to include ensuring that we're reaching the hearts and minds of the family members in addition to the learners as well.
Other questions from the board?
Right. With that, I would like thank you very much for your time, and I'd like to thank somebody who's not here, who's Wendy Weeks, who is our accreditation liaison officer. She is on annual leave, but also some folks in the audience who helped put together this framework: Emily Halverson, Dr. Vanessa Ariano, and Melissa Stoddard. And also thank you to all of the faculty and staff who helped contribute to this report and make it better.
Yes, thank you very much to everyone involved. I appreciate it. Thank you. All right, let's move on to the second part of 2.1 with Libby Howell and Joseph Mace, the overview of pending federal budget and policy changes and its impact on the college.
Good evening. I'm Libby Howell. I'm the Executive Director of Community and Government Relations. And I'm only going to make a couple of remarks. I wanted to let you know that our state lobbyist, Jonathan Payton, has a favorite expression that he uses to describe why he loves representing Pima College. He says that we were high speed and low drag. And by that, he means that when he needs information or he needs help on a topic, he knows that we'll get back to him immediately. And I'm here to tell you that every single day, Joseph and I are reminded of that expression, whether it's when we have to say, oh my gosh, the Secretary of Labor is coming and we have 1.5 days notice. Nina, can you help us please? Or whether it's we need Don Harp to download everything he knows about the TRIO program so we can regurgitate it to a member of Congress, or whether it is we have a legislator who took us up on our offer, who knew, and wants to visit the East Campus right away. So can you stop by, Jade, and say hello to him? Or whether it's things like when we have a student who's an international student whose visa might be in danger because of what's happening at the federal level. So many times when we are asked for information, for example, from the governor's office through AC4, and my counterparts will say to me, how did you get that information so fast? Well, I'm here to tell you it's because of all these people. They understand the importance of what we do and representing the college to our elected officials, and they all know that that means right now. So I just want to go on record as saying how much we appreciate all of them. With that, I'd like to turn this over to Joseph Mays, who's going to talk about all those nasty things happening in Washington, D.C.
Good evening. Chair Taylor, members of the board, Chancellor Nassy. So I want to do a quick update on a whole lot of things happening at the federal government right now. So 3 things that we sort of asked to address that are big in Washington now. There is the Ed and Workforce Reconciliation Bill that passed a couple weeks ago. There is the White House budget that they're referring to as the skinny budget that I'd like to talk about quickly. And then we were asked to sort of identify some of the big executive orders that we're looking at right now. So I'll go as quickly as I can. In the end of February, the House of Representatives passed a resolution directing all of the committees in the House to find somewhere between $2 and $2.5 trillion of cuts. And those cuts were sort of broken down for each of the committees and their expectation. The Ed and Workforce Committee was assigned a cut of $330 billion, which they passed into a bill about 2.5 weeks ago in committee. So some of the sort of highlight pieces of that bill that affect Pima are specifically around Pell Grants. The committee shored up some shortfalls in Pell that we were looking at, but they did it both by assigning new dollars and then changing some of the terms of the Pell Grant. So some of the terms that have changed is to receive a full Pell Grant. Now a student needs to be taking 15 credits a semester instead of 12. A student who is taking less than half time is now ineligible for Pell at all. The committee also added a new workforce Pell program to the bill. We have, along with many community colleges, advocated for workforce Pell. I will say there are some of the requirements in the bill maybe will make it difficult for many of our programs to take advantage of that, but we do support the creation of workforce Pell and sort of think about the details in the future as something we can work on. As far as the portion of Pell Grants, this change to Pell that makes sort of full-time harder to reach and cuts off people beyond half-time, we estimate that there's about a $3.6 million effect to our families and students. So the institution, PCC itself, will not really feel much of the effect of that because our tuition is covered early on in a person's Pell Grant, but those dollars they use for other cost of attendance purposes like transportation, rent, food, those kinds of things are where the impact will be felt the most. So we as I said, 3.6 million to our community. Another major portion of this reconciliation bill is a risk-sharing bill that would essentially hold institutions accountable for unpaid student loan debt, and that includes both default, but then also if a student, say for example, is in an income-based repayment program and they're prorated loans, it might be that missing portion. It's looking at what their earnings are, looking at students who did not complete, and so institutions can be put on the hook for that. Now, Pima doesn't have a huge loan portfolio, but we do annually have between $5 to $7 million of student loans. And if a portion of those loans is sort of charged against the institution, it creates a lot of risk, and we don't really know, day to day what that risk could be. But we estimate that it could be as much as $1.5 million to the institution. So that's a concern. There's other changes in the bill that help to reach that $330 billion mark, which includes phasing out entirely subsidized student loans for students, and placing caps on certain loans, severely restricting Parent Plus loans for parents who are helping their kids with their tuition. And it also repeals the 90-10 rules, which are sort of protections against proprietary schools that are one of the fail-safes for being able to evaluate value in the market. Another thing just to point out about this bill is that these changes are coming at a time when the agency itself is reducing in size and being phased out, and so a lot of these new administrative things will fall on Pima and other institutions to sort of implement, monitor, bring into effect, and so it also comes with a very big administrative burden. So just to know what to expect about this bill is that it's one of several bills from different committees that are going to be gathered and then put into a single bill that the House is hoping to pass by July 4th. Many of the other committees have acted. Some are working on other portions. It's not completed yet. This morning we heard that the Ways and Means Committee has authorized or passed cuts of $300 billion to the SNAP program, so that'll be also something that affects students at Pima. The Senate has largely not acted on reconciliation yet, and there's a lot of resistance coming from certain key senators, and so we don't know what's going to happen yet, but that's probably a discussion for later in the summer. At the same time, annually, the President's Office, the Office of Management and Budget in the White House, puts out annually what has been referred in the media as the skinny budget, which is essentially the policy priorities of the White House. Since the skinny budget existed, they've been largely sort of just a messaging piece from the White House and then go largely ignored by Congress, or maybe just have a delicate impact. Many things have changed in those relationships, and so we're not really sure what to expect per se, but the budget from this White House for fiscal year 2026 calls for $163 billion in cuts to non-defense programs, a 23% reduction. And in specific to things that matter to Pima, it includes completely zeroing out TRIO and Gear Up, eliminating adult education, the federal CEOG grants, Title IIIA, and the campus grants that Pima uses for the child care as part of the funds we use for the child care facilities. It also includes an 80% cut to work study and eliminates some other important programs. The labor portion makes major changes to WIOA and shifts a lot of the focus to state-based decision making. So when we talk about this budgeting process, usually the Congress is where it starts, and the process is in the Appropriations Committee right now. We're at the very early phase of what that is, but we will see in the coming months what the Congress's sort of response to that skinny budget is. Just as a reminder, the fiscal year ends on September 30th, and so something has to happen by then. If we look at the past decade as an example, we don't get through all the appropriations bills, and there's usually some stopgap measure or some sort of quick compromise that happens to keep the government running. So those all remain to be seen. Finally, executive orders. There's been a lot of executive orders, and could take a long time to talk about those, but there's two that we're looking at closely. One is about apprenticeships that the president has called for, more investment in apprenticeships, especially outside of the four-year degree model, and has called for coordination of several federal agencies to work together to increase the number of apprenticeships, and then also to look for ways to use federal aid, like student loans and grants, and then also Perkins funds to help make that work. The other one that's important for us is there is an executive order looking at reforming accreditation, and it both has a sort of punishing accrediting agencies that are doing things that the administration is considering inappropriate or illegal practices, and then also looking for ways to open up the market and accrediting and inviting lots of new accrediting agencies in, and then easing the ability of institutions to switch accreditors. And all of these things are stuff we have concerns with and we want to keep an eye on. And then just to mention that there's obviously executive orders on the closing of the Department of Education and restricting public service loan forgiveness. All of those things sort of need further action than just the executive order, and so we're monitoring as well. And I will leave that for questions.
Any questions from the board? Yes.
Chair Taylor, thank you. I have two questions. The first one's a weird one, and the second one's a naive one. But first, I'm here because of Pell, because of WIC, because of SNAP, and because of C Campus. I'm here today, and I'm not waiting tables and washing dishes. So my first question, my weird one, is of all of this good news, which one keeps you up at night?
Oh, well, that's a hard question because I think it depends on the night, really. But I think, I would put in perspective that, none of these things is at the finish line yet, and so all of these are, there's a lot of work we're doing, working with partners, advocates, others, to make sure that the important things we use to support our community and our students are going to be protected as best we can.
Thank you. The naive question. So as a former Pell recipient, I should probably know the answer to this, and I don't. So hopefully you can help me understand this. I'm assuming that there is some cap for the appropriation for Pell. There's some number, and I know that in a given year, potentially that number is not reached federally, nationally. And I can see this sort of balancing out, but I want to know if maybe you have any insight into this, and hopefully I can be clear in my question. I think workforce Pell is a really good idea, but if they're not increasing the appropriation for Pell, are the two going to cannibalize each other, academic Pell, whatever you want to call it, and workforce Pell? Are we going to be pitting people against each other? Or do you think that because we're bumping people off for more stringent eligibility, none of this is good, right? Do you know what my question is?
Yeah,
Okay,
I think I do. So for as long as I know, the Pell Grant has always had more funds than it's consumed. Because of simplification in the student aid process that happened in the past couple of years and has been slowly implemented, some maybe too slowly, as some administrators know, this year was expected to be maybe the first time that we expected not to have enough money in the account to cover what the need would be, because we expected a big uptake because of the simplification process of eligible people actually taking advantage of the program. And so that was something we had advocates had identified and were advocating to take care of. This reconciliation bill did infuse quite a bit of extra money, $10.5 billion more dollars into the Pell program, and so that created sort of more funds to cover some of that shortfall. It also created this workforce Pell, which I think part of that infusion of money was to help sustain that program. And then you're right that I think the sort of the other way to balance those dollars was to take away eligibility, to raise the maximum line, and to get rid of people below part-time. So that saved quite a bit of dollars. And so there, at least from the estimates, CBO, and they don't anticipate a shortfall based on this new bill, but it still is an issue. And as far as the current year, in the meantime, when we haven't passed the bill, assuming any of these things got enacted, there is a real shortfall, and I think there is some point when the money will run out, assuming nothing's done in the meantime. I hope that answered your question.
It did. Thank you.
Sure.
Other questions from the board?
I don't have a question, I just have a comment. I can attest to the high-speed, low-drag from Joseph and Libby. I want to thank them, thank everybody at the college that helped them get information out to community partners. They've been great partners of the community that I can say for sure, so thank you.
Chair Taylor, may I speak?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Joseph, I have a quick question. It seems like I might be thinking a little differently than I think what you were presenting, but am I right to be concerned that a lot of our students at Pima College might be adversely affected to the increase in requirements as far as 15 being full-time and not funding anything less than 7 units or whatever half-time is considered? Because so many of our students are only taking classes part-time.
Yes, absolutely. There are a large number of our student population that will be affected by this change. Certainly, many people who are currently full-time students who are between the 12 and 15 mark, that would affect them. And then we have a large number of students who are taking less than half-time. So it would have a massive impact. I think, we estimated, based on the current numbers, that it's about $6.5 million. Oh, what was that number? 3?
It was actually 6.5.
6.5. Yeah, 6.5 million. That is the impact of sort of all of our students together is a loss of Pell. So
Yeah.
pretty significant.
So-
and the number of students, did you know the number? We were talking, we looked at some of the numbers, and I don't know if you know offhand, but it's definitely in the thousands.
So Joseph, is that going to be one of the numbers that we will share with our federal legislators?
Yes.
To just, okay, because I
We
think
are-
that's really important for everybody to understand that too.
Yes, yeah, and we are pulling together data points to share with elected officials and important decision makers to let them know that this is a serious impact for our community and for our students. As I mentioned, it doesn't impact the school as much, but it does impact our students and our community, and that's very important. And we've also, we're also working with other institutions to make sure that they're also sharing their concerns in that space as well.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Questions?
I have an odd question as well, I guess. I understand analyzing budgets and cuts, and I don't understand in this particular instance because it almost feels counterproductive. But is there any conversation that you've heard of? Is there an intent to get industry private partnerships to be more involved in workforce development initiatives that revolve around post-secondary education? I guess what I'm asking is, are we thinking that this is going to be made up by industries that invest in the workforce that they need?
So I will say that the workforce Pell and also executive orders and some of the efforts in labor and in ed around WIOA do identify, wanting closer relationship with the industry partners. I think Pima already does a pretty incredible job in that space, but I do think that model is being expanded. That is a priority, is to make sure we're responding to workforce needs in a meaningful way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't have a question for you, but just sort of a comment to all the folks in the room and who might be watching. I mean, as Joseph was saying a second ago, this isn't done. So, this is the time, if there is aspects of what you heard, what you see in here that you like or that you don't like, this is the time to make sure your elected representatives in Congress know that. I mean, they do pay attention. Sometimes they, might not see every detail of what you send or what your voicemail is, but they do get counts of how many people called on a particular issue or how many people wrote in on a particular issue. We, in terms of our district, we have 2 U.S. senators who I know are responsive to these issues. They're in the minority in the Senate. We have 2 members of the U.S. House of Representatives. Well, one, unfortunately, with Congressman Grijalva's passing, that seat is vacant until it's filled. But Congressman Siscomani is not only in the majority, but is also on the Appropriations Committee in the House. So, he's a fantastic one if you live in his district or want to voice your concerns or your support for some aspects of what's in here. We'd encourage you to do it respectfully, but reach out to his office, and this is the time to make sure your elected representatives know what impact this might have on you, and certainly the college is going to be doing its part, and all of us on the board will as well, to make sure those folks are informed. But it's not something that's going to happen by the college's efforts alone. So we need folks who are involved in the college, supporters of the college, our students, others, to make sure that they're also voicing those opinions to your elected representatives, because they listen, especially when it comes in volume. And so I would encourage you to do so and make sure you're keeping tabs on what's happening as this continues to evolve and get to a final form.
Thank you.
Chair Taylor, I'm
Yes.
sorry, I have one
No,
more
go ahead.
question. That was such a beautiful statement to end on. I have a question.
Go ahead.
Sorry about that. You had mentioned that with the Pell Grant, potential Pell Grant reductions because of the eligibility requirement changes, that the cost shift will be on the student and not necessarily be something that we see here. But I wonder if there will be a chilling effect if there's a student taking a below half rate or whatever it might be, if they have less funding. I would almost think that maybe that would be the thing that pushes them over to not being able to come to college, and so that would affect us. I'm guessing there's no way to quantify that.
Yeah, I think it's a difficult thing to predict, right? You can imagine that there may be some students that respond, some students who are able to respond by saying, oh, I'm taking 12 credits now, and now I'll take 15, that, that could be a good thing for them in finishing on time. It could also be a bad thing if that's too much for them to be successful with, right? And then I think you're right that, we should probably expect that there are some students for whom the budget will not work in this readjusted, they're working, they're doing whatever, all the things they're doing, and then also trying to get through classes, and they budgeted based on something that, maybe they're going to get a smaller piece of what they expected, and they then may have to change their plans or slow them down significantly. Sure.
Thank you. Thank you for everything.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Joseph and Libby. All right, let's move on to section 2.2. We'll start with our reports by representatives to the board. Begin with our student report from Miguel Angel Sepulveda de Saracho.
Hello, can you hear me? Sorry. Hello, members of the board, teachers, students, staff, and guests. Before I commence with my May student report, it is my responsibility as representative at Board of Governors for Student Senate to effectively represent the sentiment of being a student in Pima Community College. And so I don't need to get political to say that there is a real concern in students for these budget cuts and the significant change to the Pell Grant. And students, there is a very real sentiment of concern, but most importantly, we're paying attention and we care. So with that out of the way, I will begin my May Student Senate report. On a brighter side, with greater news, we had a wonderful breakfast with Chancellor Nassi on May 5th, and which went really, really well. We met with Chancellor Nassi to discuss what we've been doing throughout the year, as well as feedback on potential improvements for the next cohort. Student Senate, we did attend the Leadership Recognition Award ceremony at downtown campus, where student senators were recognized for the special recognition of our efforts and accomplishments during our term. We will be hosting our final Student Senate meeting on May 19th, virtually at 1 to 3 p.m., which is open for everybody. And Student Senate, we've been doing social media also recently. We recorded some videos because we're really excited about our elections that we will be hosting for the 2025-2026 cohort. Elections will be hosted on September 8th after students have returned to fall classes. We will have 2 returning senators in Zamir and myself, so you will see a lot of me next semester. And so as we continue to advertise these great opportunity of being part of Student Senate over the summer and fall, we encourage students to get more involved, and that's all I have for Student Senate report for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or anything on the student report? No? All right, and moving on to our adjunct faculty report from Sean Mendoza.
Good evening, Chair Taylor, Chancellor Nassi, members of the board, and honored guests. Good seeing you this evening. At our Friday, May 2nd meeting, we were pleased to welcome 2 special guests. First one was Dr. Jeff Thies, Dean of Student Success. He joined us to share a collaborative work he's been doing with IT and the web design team to enhance our college web pages. The adjunct faculty that were in attendance were pretty impressed and with the thoughtful and strategic updates that were underway. We believe these improvements would hold great potential to positively impact how we market the college, communicate with current and prospective students, and ultimately support student retention. Thank you, Dr. Thies, for your work. The second special guest was Dr. David B., Executive Vice Chancellor for Finance and Administration. And during his visit, he provided a focused update on the college's budget with a focus on our specific employee group. Of particular interest to us was the proposed 3% increase in adjunct faculty pay. We appreciate Dr. B's visit and his openness to addressing our questions and concerns regarding the budget process. Thank you to both special guests, Dr. Thies and Dr. B, for your insights and your work. Also, over the past 2 months, one of the elected adjunct faculty representative positions to the All-Employee Representative Council was up for re-election. I'm happy to report that Patrick Moore has been selected, or should I say re-elected, by his peers to continue representing the adjunct faculty on the ARC for another 2-year term. Congratulations, Patrick, and thank you for your continued dedication and service to the college and your colleagues. Also at the meeting, I also shared some professional development and tuition waiver statistics, which is really interesting information if you're a nerd like me. So regarding the professional development, well, since its creation in 2022, Most adjunct faculty are taking advantage of this valuable resource. In fact, and we also want to thank administration for being supportive of our professional development requests. During this year, 2025 fiscal year, 49% of requests went towards conference and professional development registration, 32% for travel, and 19% for tuition reimbursement. I want to thank Aubrey Conover and Josie Planes for providing this important data. Now, with regards to tuition waivers for adjunct faculty, it's interesting to think that since its implementation back in 2019, there have been 535 tuition fee waivers have been processed for adjunct faculty, with an average annual increase of approximately 2.4%. It's great to see that adjunct faculty and their spouses and dependents are utilizing this college benefit that improves our faculty, our community, and the institution. Many thanks to Andrew Plucker for compiling and sharing this information with us. And also, given these statistics, I'm reminded of the amazing support provided by our institution. Thank you to the board and college administration for your continued support and guidance on topics pertaining to compensation and our workplace environment. Thank you, Dr. B, Acting Provost Rourke, Chancellor Nassy, and Kate Schmidt. And lastly, to the students in the audience and those listening online, on behalf of the adjunct faculty, I want to say thank you for choosing Pima Community College to build the foundation of your academic and professional career. We have no doubt that you will represent the best of us in the days and years to come. Congratulations on your upcoming graduation. And this ends my report.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Sean? No, not hearing any. We'll move on to the staff report from Don Harp.
Greetings, member of the board, Chancellor Nassy, colleagues, and guests. This time of year is a very busy one for staff, particularly staff council. We have end of fiscal year deadlines, graduation, and we're also conducting elections like many of the other groups. In addition, we are reviewing and revising our bylaws and reviewing our I'm still shaken from the government relations report, sorry. So we are also looking at our staff council representative positions, our officer positions, and revising and updating those as well. And mentioning our government relations team, I wanted to thank you both so much for your advocacy and your support. I know you work really hard, not only with our lobbyists, but with our elected officials, and you are constantly shaking your pom-poms for us and encouraging us. And we really, really appreciate that in general, but particularly at this time. And that thank you actually extends to the entire college community. It's really incredible the support that we have been receiving. So thank you so much. And that concludes my report for this evening.
Thank you, Don. Any questions or comments from Don? No? All right. Then our final report from Rita Lennon of the House Linen, first of her name, Queen of the Andals and the First Men, Khaleesi of the Great Grass Sea, Breaker of Chains, and Mother of Dragons.
Wow. That was awesome. Thank you, but I don't think it'll fit on my name tag, so. Chairperson Taylor, members of the board, Chancellor Nassy, community partners, and colleagues, thank you for the opportunity for me to share this brief update on behalf of Faculty Senate. We had our last meeting on May 2nd, which was last Friday, and it was held in person at the downtown campus, and the energy in the room was noticeable. Real-time feedback from senators was overwhelmingly positive to help guide our planning moving forward. We've also distributed a survey to faculty senators to assess how we should meet in the future. I know I talk a lot about the future I talk about the meetings as a structure, but during these meetings, we have the opportunity to hear about all of the wonderful things that we're planning, thinking about how these are going to affect or impact our classrooms, our teaching, and of course, I'm also reeling from, what we've heard from the previous report. And it goes without saying that obviously we're very concerned about how this is going to impact our students. Also, our faculty, if it's going to be a loss in how many faculty we can have here because we have less students, that's also going to impact our ability to make changes and impact our community. So I'm really concerned about that, but as everyone has mentioned, this is just the beginning, so hopefully it won't be something that reaches that finish line. Getting back to my report. A heartfelt thank you to Katie Hernandez, whose behind-the-scenes efforts continue to go above and beyond. Her consistent dedication does not go unnoticed and is deeply appreciated. If you haven't met Katie yet, she is part of the amazing support team in the Provost's office, and although she isn't employed by Senate, we often boss her around. She certainly makes the magic happen for us time and again. At the meeting, we were also pleased to honor our faculty emeriti. Although 2 of our honorees were away traveling, we celebrated Teresa Riel in person with flowers and a modest gift. We also took a moment to express our appreciation for our prior provost with a small floral gesture as well. One standout observation from this meeting was the level of engagement. Senators and guests alike were more interactive, with the conversations were notably more robust than they have typically been. I'm tripping all over my mouth today, I'm so sorry, in our virtual formats. Earlier this week, during our administration and faculty officers meeting, we were briefed about a recent leadership retreat attended by our faculty president, Denise Riley, and President-elect Kelly O'Keefe. The retreat focused on high-level strategic topics that sounded both timely and forward-thinking. That said, I'd like to emphasize the importance of ensuring these big-picture conversations don't remain at the leadership level alone. I know I have not yet said shared governance. I'm sure you guys are wondering or worried that I'm going to not say that. I'm not going to say it other than what I just said. Our faculty leaders bring essential perspectives, but also does the broader faculty body. So does the body. As we move forward, I hope that there will be intentional opportunities to gather and incorporate faculty-wide input into these important institutional discussions. And with that, this concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? I'm not going to say that full title again. We'll just say questions for Rita. No? All right. Thank you so much. So we'll move on to 2.3, Chancellor's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, Board Member Barraza, Board Member Rial, I hope you feel better, and Board Member Randall, great to see you. Thank you, as always, for your service, and especially this time of year. I know I've seen you at several events, and it means so much for our students, our faculty, and staff to have you attending things like the Student Leadership Award, the Honors Award. Several of you traveled up to Phoenix to meet with other trustees and other community college presidents and chancellors, so I really appreciate all the great work that you're doing. And good to see all of our faculty, staff, and students here this evening. Thank you for all the great work that you're doing, particularly our student senators. As you mentioned, it was good to get together and just sit down and hang out with the students and get to hear their perspectives on the ground, their experiences, and by and large, just amazing experiences that they're having at Pima, and they're just tremendous examples for us. And just tonight, I want to take note, appreciate Dr. Rourke and his team in terms of that corrective action process, and Libby and Joseph on the work on public policy, which is ongoing. And they are really busy this time of year under the leadership of our General Counsel, Jeff Sylvan, really doing a lot to help us advocate for our students, right, and for our community. So very important. Professor Lennon mentioned the leadership retreat, and I did want to talk about that, right? This is a time of year where we're celebrating graduation and the achievements of our students and kind of the end, if you will, of the academic year. It's also a time for planning, right, for the next academic year, where we're trying to, take some lessons learned and then begin to shape our priorities moving forward, as Professor Lennon mentioned, right? So just the makeup of the people in the room at this leadership retreat to do some of that reflection and thinking about priorities moving forward was a change for the college, right? It is the first time we've had Faculty Senate leadership at the table as we begin planning those processes. We also invited our campus operations, right? Our campus vice presidents to be part of that conversation along with senior leadership. And I think it's important that I preview, kind of talk about what we talked about with the board. And of course, we have an upcoming board retreat where we'll go over some of these. And some of it's around fundamentals, right? And we heard some of the things that may impact those fundamentals today, but the idea of bringing more students in, enrollment, and student success, having students persist, having students finish, graduate, complete those credentials or values, and then post-completion outcomes. What happens to our students once they have earned that credential, whether that's transfer, job placement, or both. So in those spaces, in enrollment, more and more of our students are taking online courses. So what does their student success look like for our online learners? And what do our campuses look like in terms of supporting those students? How can we redesign those spaces to support online learners, hybrid learners, and traditional face-to-face learning? High school engagement is an area that a priority that I've talked about in my first 100-day report. It continues to be a theme. We have reorganized around high school engagement. We want to deepen that engagement and, quite frankly, engage middle schools as well, and make sure that we're really in those places. And part of that is answering the question, how do we become a provider of choice for training and education and really a competitive market? And we heard about some of the efforts around deregulation and accreditation, right? There's going to be even more people that provide this type of training. And so how does Pima position itself here as a provider of choice in that competitive market? A lot of that, we believe, is about new models of delivering education that respond to market demand, that idea of really doubling down on market-driven programs and curricula, including increasing our baccalaureate degree offerings, is certainly an area of growth that we want to discuss with the board and is a priority. Increased matriculation from dual enrollment. Dr. Barraza, you couldn't have previewed this even more. One of the big takeaways from the retreat is 10% of our overall enrollment is made up by dual enrollment, which we are providing at cost. We are not getting any tuition for that dual enrollment. So A, how do we get more of those dual enrollment students to Pima after they leave high school? And that is to Dr. Barraza's point, what kind of things can we do to incentivize that? And then how do we think about cost mitigation? That is a cost to the institution. When you think about that kind of number, 10% of our overall enrollment, that is certainly a conversation that we're eager to have with our governing board. In terms of retention, student persistence, some of the board was able to go to the Higher Learning Commission conference earlier this year, as well as the American Association of Community College conference. In both venues, developmental education reform. So when students come into us, the idea is right. We want to help students get up to speed. But the way we're doing that, right, the way we're bringing students into the institution, we need them to get into college credit classes immediately. And there's been a lot of developmental education reform across the country. And one of the big lines coming out of that, there is no data anywhere that shows that developmental education has helped anyone graduate faster or quicker. So we need to really be looking at how we're doing that and how we're serving our students. It also includes student success courses, the STU courses. Again, lots of research and literature out there saying that including internally at Pima, that these courses work and help students move forward. So how do we make sure that that course continues to be relevant, includes ideas like digital fluency, how they're using technology, and if it helps students graduate and persist, then how are we making sure that's happening for students? And of course, always the number one metric in my mind for any institution of higher education is how many people are graduating. What is your graduation rate? To me, that's one of the ultimate scorecards for a community college. So how can we increase program completion rates into good paying jobs or transfer? So when we talk about guided pathways, and I can hear Dr. Rourke's voice echoing in my head, guided pathways with fidelity, he would say. But the Pathways movement was designed to accelerate completion, and we want to do that. And that means things like shorter classes, right? Scaling 8-week courses to that end. Lots of discussion on transfer rates. Obviously, we're in Tucson, Arizona. The University of Arizona is right here in our backyard. We need more of our students getting over to the U of A and being successful when they get there. And then operational considerations. We have the highest number of employees at the institution that we have ever had, and we have less students than we've had in previous years. We have 400 more employees than we had in 2014. Enrollments declined over that time, although we're bouncing back, thankfully, in enrollment. But what does that mean in terms of efficiency? Condensing our physical footprint. We're talking about these buildings here on Broadway, although beautiful. Could we get back to our campuses? Some of them mentioned earlier around facilities, the centers, right? We're paying leases on centers. We believe, our students would be better served on our campuses, right? Condensing our physical footprint, and then again, reorganizing in terms of just being efficient, right? Every penny matters, particularly in this new environment. It always should matter in terms of stewarding public funds. And so we want to really optimize efficiency. We're eager to talk with the board about those ideas. And again, public safety continues to be a high area of community need, great career jobs. And so how can we begin to move forward on that public safety center of excellence, and the opportunity to provide more safety for our students? Safety is always a primary concern. The police department, right? They're right now located out by the airport. We'd like to have them downtown if possible. So lots of opportunities that we're eager coming out of that retreat, and it was a great meeting with all kinds of, we had faculty, we had staff leadership there, as staff council leadership, we had Erica there, of course, and our leaders. In terms of legislative priorities, I know we've talked a lot about the federal government components, but also in state. In Phoenix, I had a chance to go with Joseph, meet with several of our legislative delegation and beyond, Pima Connor, to talk about dual enrollment. Dual enrollment, I mentioned the expense. The state could help us mitigate that cost. And it bipartisan, right? Republicans, Democrats alike spoke to the idea of early college and support it. And so that it continues to be a priority. I had an opportunity to have a luncheon with our local superintendents since our last board meeting, and they, of course, support that as well. And we want to work with our school districts because we know it's an important access point for them. And I know we've talked a lot about the reconciliation budget at the federal level, and I would just concur and reemphasize the point, but that any limitation on Pell Grants really hurts community college students. And really, right, if we are the workforce development engine we want to be, we really need Pell, right? And so limitations to Pell is, of course, so again, expressing consistently to our community stakeholders, our community partners, our industry leaders, to Board Member Morales' point, we will have to rely on industry partners to help make some of that up, should it be limited. Again, we don't know, but we hope we see that our policymakers understand that Pell is critical to the community college pipeline. Some other things I think are relevant for the board to be aware of. I had a great opportunity to sit with our faculty, our artificial intelligence community of practice. So this was a gathering of faculty and staff, and faculty were sharing how they were using AI in their classrooms, working with students to advance teaching and learning, and it was remarkable. I left really inspired to see what our faculty are doing at a classroom level in embracing this new technology. One of the takeaways that Dr. Milliken presented was when a few years ago when AI was just coming onto the scene, they did a poll of faculty, and they did one of these word clouds, and the dominant piece in the word cloud was like, cheating and ethics. And then they did one recently, and it was all about creativity and energy and innovation. So our faculty are really embracing this technology and doing wonderful things, and we will bring to the board kind of an all things AI that PCC is doing in the fall, whether that's operationally, student services, teaching and learning, right? It's being layered across various programs, and we certainly, including in June, we're launching our Small Business Development Center is launching an AI non-credit class for small businesses, which I would like to take that. I don't know if there's even any room. I know I've been promoting it at every venue. Had a chance to tour AGM Manufacturing with the CEO, Howard Stewart. Thank that. They do a wonderful tuition reimbursement program. A lot of their employees are Pima students, Pima graduates, and they encourage them to. And the tuition reimbursement is not just around a particular field within what they do. It can be anything. And it's been a remarkable employment retention strategy. So I thought a wonderful partnership, and a shout out to the great work they're doing. You have mentioned the visit from the U.S. Secretary of Labor and Congressman Siscomani, and it was great to see, to show off our programs and hopefully garner support, right, in terms of those type of programs. We heard there is some movement around workforce programs at the federal level, and hopefully we can take advantage of some of those resource opportunities. And of course, we had our ribbon cutting at the Desert Vista campus for hospitality leadership. Wonderful program. We're excited that's gone off the ground. I think, is Dean Craig here? No, I don't see Jim. No. But it was great to have many of you there and supporting and talk to students, and what an amazing facility. So we're looking forward to see how that can continue to grow. And Chairperson Taylor, you had introduced me to Tom McKinney of Interfaith Community Services, and that led to an opportunity with that group. They have come to our campus, and they were able to serve 32 families, 84 different people, and provide 75 pounds of food to people in need. And it's just a great example, right, of a community college community partnership. Just some congratulations. I want to congratulate our prison education program. They recently received their HLC accreditation, and we're proud of the work that they're doing in terms of recidivism and helping people get back on their feet through accreditation. Our paralegal department received their ABA, American Bar Association accreditation. We know accreditation's hard work. It just comes to me in an email, hey, it got done, but so critical for our students in that program. You need those type of accreditations, and I know it's hard work from that team. Of course, our Pima softball team, back-to-back regional championships, so outstanding. So they're doing great. I think they're off to Alabama to compete in the national tournament. I also, operationally, right, we recognize Dr. Teese, Jeff Teese. He's up there in the corner, scowling. There he is. He is going to be he has been named as our new Vice Provost for Academic Operations. Congratulations, Dr. Teese. Give him a hand. And it's funny, tonight, where Professor Hayes is not here, I did want to make a recommendation, Chairperson Taylor, if I may, based on several conversations since arriving here in dialogue with our various employee representative groups through the All Employee Representative Council, right, AERC. I'm asking that the board schedule a regular report to the board from the AERC to include individual reports from PCC, EA, ACES, and ACME to provide input on personnel policies as articulated in Board Policy 1.25. I think just having them come to the board gives the ARC and the representative groups an opportunity to address the board, and I'm recommending a quarterly report, or maybe twice per major semester, as an initial cadence for that type of reporting. And with that concludes my report.
Thank you, Chancellor. Any questions for Chancellor Nesi?
Chair Taylor?
Yes, go ahead.
I just wanted to let Dr. Nassi know also that today is Michaela Hayes's anniversary. So she was having a hard time deciding if she wanted to come to the board meeting or do something lovely and romantic with her hubby. And so I guess he won out.
Yes. Thank you for that.
I think she made the right choice.
Definitely. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Board Member Randall.
Chair Taylor. I think that maybe I'm not the only one that was still reeling from from the report earlier from the government affairs team. But Chancellor Nassi, I just want to let you know that I won't be losing too much sleep because I know you're at the helm and that this team is also on board. And it just, thanks everybody.
Anyone else? No? All right. Well, then we'll move through section 3, which is information items. Everyone has a chance to look at those. Move on to section 4. Is there a motion on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All right. All those in favor of passing the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Nope. That passes unanimously, so we can move into Section 5. So 5.1, if we can start out with Dr. Rourke wanted to provide some background on this item and a presentation, then maybe we can have a motion and some discussion and go from there. Sorry, is it Dr. B? My thing says it's Ian. So
It will likely be both of us. So Chairperson Taylor, members of the board, Chancellor Nassi, colleagues, guests, it's my pleasure to give a little bit of context related to the board action item related to Kelly Services. Just to do sort of quick overview, we've been using Kelly Services to provide compliant payroll services since 2023. The program with Kelly Services started when coming out of COVID. What happened is a lot of our instruction moved online. Also, there were people who previously had been working for the college, may have been living in Tucson, who moved to other locations during the COVID time period. It was not a unique experience for Pima College. What we then discovered through payroll was that we had a growing number of employees who were residing out of state. This triggers a bunch of concerns from a payroll processing and compliance standpoint because when you live each state, and in many of the states, different localities have different payroll taxes, different payroll withholding rules, different unemployment rules, and so forth. And the idea is that for our payroll staff that is really built to provide excellent payroll services within the state of Arizona, they recognized that ensuring compliance in as many states as we were now recognizing was not plausible with the resources that we had at the college. So we looked around for best practices, identified that contracting out with a firm, a well-known firm that provided assurance compliance in more than 50 states and in fact multiple countries. If we were to have employees out of country, they would help with that. And the staff put together a proposal that recommended contracting out the payroll services for out-of-state employees. And I will add specifically for adjunct and temporary employees who are providing instructional services. So these are Kelly Services has been used specifically for instructors who are out of state. Again, the primary reason for this is to ensure payroll compliance. It is, again, as I just said, only used for temporary adjunct faculty. It could be temporary employees who provide workforce training, so most of them are adjunct faculty. When I say adjunct faculty and temporary, I'm not trying to bounce between the two. It's that it's for online instruction purposes. The way that this contract works is because Kelly Services provides the payroll services, Kelly Services pays the employees. So when you look at the contract and the recommended contract structure, and in this case we're recommending for the upcoming year $1.175 million, That covers the adjunct faculty or temporary wages, the benefits associated with those employees. Both of those things would be our costs anyway, right? We would, if they were our direct employees, we would be paying those. That's why we split it out in the board report where you see the $870,000 and then the amount for fringe benefits split, because for all intents and purposes, we would incur those costs anyway. So the only additional cost is really that additional roughly $135,000. That's what Kelly Services makes to provide that's administrative services fee. That's what we're really paying them. Some important things to note also is that we've been working to reduce the number of faculty on that, and Ian, that's why it's probably a team thing, that Ian will speak a little bit to that. That by approving this contract, the board is approving the maximum amount that could be paid through Kelly Services. That is to say that if we had 0 adjunct or temporary employees working out of state, the actual expense would be 0, right? This just gives us the ability to use that contract to make sure that we're providing compliant services for these out-of-state employees as long as we have them. Again, that's a really important distinction, and when we would come back to the board is if it sets the maximum amount, and we would have to come back to the board if it exceeded that. One other point that's worth mentioning is to provide a little bit of context about this. The number of out-of-state faculty and expenditures both represent, depending on what your divisor is, about 6% of the total. So 6% of the adjunct faculty costs, 6% of the number of adjunct faculty roughly are through out-of-state services. And in the total payroll that we provide, this is about 1% of our total payroll. So we're talking about something that's relatively small, and again, the purpose of Kelly Services is to ensure that we provide compliant payroll outside of the state of Arizona. We could not do this adequately with inside staff. So that's my side of it. Happy to answer questions related to that, and if you get into questions about how many faculty, what they're teaching, that sort of thing, I will then turn those questions over to my colleague, Dr. Rourke.
I wonder, Dr. Rourke, if you could talk just a little bit about, the process that goes into, or the process that you're considering for approvals for when we hire out-of-state people. This has come up before where this was prior to my colleagues who are sitting next to me here tonight, but when Board Member Real and I were here before, that there was concerns expressed at the number of out-of-state individuals that were being hired, and I heard Dr. B say a second ago that there's work being done to reduce that number. That doesn't seem like it's happening super quickly. So if you talk a little bit about what that process looks like.
Yes, so of course, given dialogue between the board and the chancellor, really in preparation for this meeting, started a more robust conversation internally around how do we mitigate this from the current pool of 56 is illustrated in the board packet. So we went from 56 the prior year to 44 currently, but the pool is still 56, right? And so immediately had asked that any addition to the pool require my approval, and that the circumstances must be extraordinary. So that's an immediate action that has moved forward, operational. Moving forward, how do we get it down as quickly as possible, and how soon can we do that? Currently, there are in written communication to the board, we had indicated 130. It's actually 103 sections, so not people, but sections, meaning some of these individuals are teaching more than one class. 103 allocated across the upcoming summer session, fall, and then the following spring. So then how can we get down to 0 for the fall of 26? And is that feasible, right? I'll talk about the goal of 0 versus sort of the reality and some little measure of an escape hatch that needs to be in place. But we talked about how can we currently work on those 103 and reduce, and we believe that we currently can reduce the 103 that are scheduled to be even lower than the existing 103 assigned to out-of-state adjuncts. But then, is it possible for fall of 26? And the answer is currently, of course, because there are no assigned classes right now for the fall of 26. And so we intend to keep it that way, except with a very diligent exception process. Currently, I do not sign off on the hire of adjunct faculty. That's really done at a more departmental level and then up through some certain members on the provost leadership team. But for out-of-state adjuncts, it would, of course, moving forward, require my approval well in advance with, again, an eye of scrutinization and really what is the reality of that situation. I think it's also important that, and everybody we've talked to, and I met with Sean Mendoza, Patrick Moore, who he mentioned in his report, and Derek Merchant, who are the two adjunct faculty on AERC, just to really kind of let them know what the conversation is and what the reaction was, and at least with them and with others that we've talked about so far internally, understood that, yes, to Dr. B's point, the salary and fridge would be expenses that we would be putting out anyway, right? But those dollars aren't necessarily circulating from an economic development perspective in our local community, right? So it's important that more of those salary dollars go to people who are going to be circulating those dollars within our own community. It's important to note, right, that it's out of state, not out of county. And so talking with the team about what are the opportunities to look at our adjunct pool and where we have hard to find positions, right? Some of these are specialized areas perhaps, but we have a very large metropolitan area to the north of us, right? The Phoenix metropolitan area is the 5th largest MSA in the country, and certainly between at least our metropolitan statistical area and that one, we can recruit to have those opportunities where we need and cannot find the talent locally. But also, what about a creative conversation with all 10 community colleges about sharing adjunct pools for difficult to fill areas, and is that something that we could do? So we're looking at that. I actually asked Dr. B, should we set the goal of not having this contract at all? And the recommendation was, no, there are times, and it has happened, where somebody through the hiring process, their residency is verified, even for adjunct faculty, but then they move afterwards. And that certainly did happen in the pandemic. Of the 56, it's interesting to note that 63% of them were former Arizona and most likely local individuals. So they either taught for us full-time in the past or as an adjunct or both in the past and have since moved. So really looking at a more robust and diligent process on how we are checking periodically after hire on the residency of these individuals is another step that we will be taking. So that is the plan currently, and look forward to any potential questions.
Any questions for Dr. B or Dr. Rourke?
Just for clarification, so it's only adjunct or temporary employees, no...
Through this Kelly Services contract.
No full-time...
That's correct. But of course, there are a small number of full-time people. I do not know what that number is across the college. 4? And Ford, I know that there are 2 in academic affairs, and we will be having conversations around what to do in those particular circumstances as well. But Kelly only addresses the out-of-state adjunct faculty.
Okay, thank you.
Chair Taylor?
Yes.
Dr. Rourke, my question for you is, I went back through all of the board meetings, the PCC TV videos, and read through the documents again, just to make sure that my memory of what I thought I heard is consistent with that which is published and online. And there were a couple of questions I just want to ask. When you say temporary employees, are all adjunct faculty temporary employees?
Yes.
So the full-time faculty that are being paid by Kelly Services, they're not considered temporary employees, are they?
My understanding is that there are not full-time faculty that are paid on Kelly Services.
Oh, okay, thanks. And then, sorry about my voice, it's crazy.
I would give you my water bottle, but I know that the distance precludes that.
I've been drinking lots of water. So over those months, February of 2023, I got a list of names of people, and so we had all been told that they were hard to hire positions, which I was looking through it, and it's biology, history, CIS, astronomy, math. Couldn't believe there was somebody math, considering we have math adjuncts that I know that want to teach more and aren't teaching more. But then and writing, a bunch of writing classes too. But then I was speaking with soon-to-be Dr. Kelly O'Keefe and Rita, and they mentioned that their programs were very hard to fill locally, so they needed to be able to have this option. Otherwise, the increasing number of students that they needed to educate, they wouldn't be able to educate. So I sort of changed my tone a little bit of being completely against this back in 2023. But we did mention to everybody that we wanted, and this was the entire board, I think, had the same feeling. We wanted them to decrease these numbers greatly, especially in the areas that we have adjunct faculty here in Tucson to teach. So then in 2024, there were some other things that were stated. In the February 14th, 2024, it was mentioned, not by you because you weren't in the position, but somebody else, that these are not Pima College employees. They are Kelly Services employees. And so when you were speaking earlier about, where did I write that down? The standardized faculty orientation and professional development that all faculty and adjunct faculty would be having, how can we ascertain that those online teachers through Kelly Services actually get the same kind of professional development and orientation if they're not Pima Community College's employees in the first place? So I guess that's my last question.
Okay, and if I don't hit all of the points, Board Member Real, please just remind me which ones I didn't hit. I'll start with, I did not review what you had reviewed in preparation for this meeting in terms of what statements had been made previously. My charge this evening is to chart the course moving forward with respect to meeting all of these issues and concerns. And just to reiterate, as I expressed, there will be a process for exceptions, but there has to be a process, and faculty need to be made aware and involved in that process, right? So it's not going to be immediately done next week in terms of the final process for those exceptions. I think to the specific faculty and others perhaps that you mentioned that are hard to fill and are more specialized areas, or perhaps even in a general education area at certain levels of perhaps like mathematics, it may also be hard to fill. So it's not just in certain technical areas. That's why we will have an exception process and retain moving forward with a Kelly Services agreement, just not perhaps with as large of an upper limit. And I also think that our increased efforts to recruit across the state of Arizona and not just in the metropolitan area, which is currently what we're doing, will also help with those efforts, because there will be a larger pool of people and talent from which we can draw in Maricopa County. In terms of employment, it's employment in terms of payroll and fringe. All of the other aspects of being an adjunct faculty, whether they are on Kelly or not, we still retain all of those other processes, from hire to onboarding to professional development to communication to participation in meetings. Everything else other than how their payroll is processed is really a seamless Pima Community College experience.
Okay. And then I just want to mention that in both of the years, 2023, there were statements made that, that there was going to be a work down, these were sort of exact words, a work down to the absolute minimum of adjunct faculty as possible. this was made clear by the board. So the administrators who spoke to us in the past knew that the board did not want to continue doing this, and that it's just concerning to me that I appreciate you starting and getting this ball rolling, but it concerns me that we were told that they were going to work up down to the absolute minimum, and I don't think that's been done. And so I don't like being told things and then find out later that they hadn't been initiated. But thank you, Dr. Work, for answering my questions. I appreciate that.
Any other questions?
I just want to clarify, based on your expertise and your roles, either you, Dr. Rourke, or B, do you feel that it's been minimized to the level where it was expected and that there's a plan in place to minimize the use of Kelly services?
What I can say is that I am not certain that there were numerical targets and a ramp down plan, and that's what I have communicated to academic leadership last week and this week, to the ramp down to the aim of 0, and with these exceptions that that it would be that rare exception and hard to fill, along with the increased recruitment efforts in Phoenix and the rest, all of Arizona really, but that's where the large.
Thank you. And just to clarify, just based on what Board Member Real said, in reference to the trust of whether the adjunct faculty that we are aligning with based on Kelly services, do we trust them as being adequate and, what's the word I want to use? Are they trustworthy to be able to make those decisions, or have they proven themselves to not be worthy to make the selections to align with the type of selections we would make with adjunct faculty?
Yeah, so again, they go through all of the onboarding processes and adjunct faculty evaluation processes as those that live within the state of Arizona or reside locally. So all of those processes are the same. They also have to do everything that every other adjunct faculty has to do with respect to grade submissions, taking attendance, reporting on their course learning outcomes, everything that every faculty member has to do, like we sort of talked about earlier with the additional locations. And I think, again, just to reiterate that data point, that 63% of these 56 individuals were Arizona residents and most likely Pima County residents, and then they have since entered this pool because they have moved since they started actually teaching for Pima Community College.
Thank you.
Yes.
Chair Taylor?
Yes.
I just have one question. So given that 63% of these folks were once in state, this almost seems to be like it'll be a continuing issue. You'll hire potentially adjunct faculty, they're working remotely, and then for whatever reason, they might have to move out of state. I know you briefly mentioned that you would have a process moving forward and also potentially like a waiver. I can imagine a situation where an adjunct has to temporarily move out of state to take care of, a parent or whatever kind of situation might come up.
Yes.
I'm interested, I don't necessarily think that that's a bad thing in certain situations. I would be interested to hear if you have it fully fleshed out, what that process would look like.
No, this just really came to our attention at this level just within the past couple of weeks, and so that process needs to be developed and have a lot of eyes on it, including from our full-time and adjunct faculty, and especially like our department heads and our deans. And just as a former department head, and what our department heads have to do, that's why we need to have a ramp down plan that is thoughtful. And fall of 26 was a more reasonable target for that, because ultimately they're the ones that do a lot of the hiring and bringing on these adjuncts. And from their perspective, right, they know these individuals. To Board Member Morales's request, like on a day-to-day basis, if I have a reliable person who has done the work and done it well year after year after year, right, that's why we hadn't potentially seen it. But we have to put the numerical targets in place, and then ultimately the expectation that we have to get as close to 0 by X date, and that is going to be the fall of 26 semester, and then that allows us to be more methodical with respect to the ramp down.
I'd like to add a little bit to that. What you're pointing out, Board Member Randall, that's why we don't want to not have this because that would give us the ability to be somewhat flexible. And you just came up with a scenario that, I'm not sure we even totally anticipated. So we want to be able to continue to have the ability to use Kelly services when we need to, notwithstanding the fact that we also want to ramp down the number of employees who are out of state. Both are goals. And then the third thing is that having a process to identify periodically that someone has moved out of state. Because in some cases, this is, again, how this all came to be. We didn't know these people were out of state, right? Because the world changed. You can start performing your job in a completely remote way. That created a new opportunity that hadn't been there in the past. So we need to sort of find a way to periodically check on that. We'll work on that. The one positive is that these types of employees that we're talking about, adjunct faculty and these temporary employees, their jobs are time specific, right? So at the end of their contract, then before the next contract comes due, creates an ideal opportunity for us to then verify that they are still in the state of Arizona. So there are ways that we can implement and get our arms around it and continue to ramp it down. But again, particularly with the contract and having Kelly services available, I think we need to, at least for a foreseeable future until we have more than a year of zero, I strongly would recommend having Kelly services available to ensure that, again, this is about ensuring that we're providing compliant payroll for these employees. So thank you.
Dr. B, Dr. Rourke, I do appreciate that you're approaching this with a scalpel rather than an axe. So thank you.
Chair Taylor, may I ask Dr. B a quick question, please?
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you. In February of 2023, we were told that there was a process to hire out of state. That was at the 1 hour and 42-minute mark. And then last year in February of 24, it must have been at a board study session because the timestamp is very short, but at the 26.5-minute mark, Dr. Wade McLean made a big statement, but the gist of it, if I paraphrase it correctly, was why are we not paying these adjunct faculty less to cover the extra amount that Kelly Services is charging? And he asked that question to you, Dr. B, and I don't really remember what your response was right now, but my question is twofold. One, do we set the adjunct faculty rates, or does Kelly Services, since they're the employer of record? That's my first question. And then my second question, can we do something like that, what Wade McLean suggested, if we're hiring out of state, that their salaries would be decreased so we don't cover the Kelly Services with our budgeting dollar amounts?
Okay, we could. We control the pay rate, right? So it's just a pass-through. And hypothetically, we could offer a lower pay rate for those duties, although then you come up with the problem that you're now paying people differentially. But yes, we could. I mean, there might be some legal concerns that we'd have to go through, but I don't think that they're insurmountable.
Thank you.
All right, is there other questions or a motion on the floor?
I move that we approve the contract for Kelly Services.
I second.
Any discussion?
Chair Taylor, I have a comment.
Sure, go ahead.
I'm concerned that, we're as a governing board, we do a lot of work, and we're concerned about things, and I raise a stink, we all raise a stink, some of us raise stinks, and we're told certain things, and then we find out that this is the third year that at least me, but I think other board members were also concerned about this too. And the situation hasn't improved. And I think that that's disconcerting for two reasons. The governing board is being told things that aren't actually happening. And then the second reason in this case is that we are spending more money to hire out of state than we would be if we could hire in state. And I think that if we're concerned with how we spend taxpayer dollars, we need to make sure that things like this are reduced down to zero if at all possible, but definitely moving in that direction and not staying at this large dollar amount. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm at least reassured somewhat by the planning and the information that we were presented tonight that we'll see more quick movement. This was very small movement from last year to this year in terms of a small reduction, but we'll see more considerable reductions going forward and be able to tap into the workforce we have, not only locally, but within the state of Arizona at large, not only our neighbors in Maricopa County, but potentially the other 13 counties that we could draw from and some of their expertise as well. But I agree with you. I think I'd hoped this would move faster, but I found what was shared reassuring for whatever that matters. Any other comments? Or?
Mr. Chair, if I may,
Yeah.
I don't think that it is realistic or strategic to think that that number is going to go to zero. In terms of we want to be as competitive as possible and be able to provide our students with the best education and opportunities available. And I think that if we're strategic and we're just using in the foreseeable future the Kelly services to hire individuals that are highly specialized that we can't find in state, that's to the benefit of our students and the courses we are able to offer. And so I hope the expectation is not that it will go to zero, given the technology, and I think we have to capitalize on that and use it to our students' advantage. So I understand the sentiment of that number being as low as possible, but I think we need to be realistic and strategic about maybe it's never going to be zero.
Thank you. Any other comments for the discussion? Board Member Randall?
I just have another question,
Sure.
Chair Taylor. I have reviewed the many attachments, and I'm sure the answer is in here, and I'm missing it. I know that the amount, the estimate, includes the actual salaries and benefits. How much does Kelly Services actually cost us above that salary and benefit baseline?
I think you all just said what was 135,000, and the rest is all salary and benefits. So the only money they're getting is the 135,000. Everything else is being directly passed through to paid those employees, as we would pay them if they weren't a Kelly Services employee. Yeah.
Thank you, and sorry for missing that somehow.
Sorry, there was a lot of information there. Any other comments, just for discussion? No? All right, I will call the vote then. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I'm aye as well. All those opposed?
Nay.
It passes 4-1 with Board Member Real dissenting. All right, moving on to 5.2, the capital project plan for fiscal year 2026. Is that Dr. B again, I think? I could just keep saying Ian's name over and over again and give him heart palpitations for every one of these things.
The Chairperson Taylor, members of the board, Chancellor Nassy, colleagues, guests. I will be doing the next few presentations. I know it's late. We've had a long meeting. We've been through a lot of these items before, so I'll try and be really quick with presentations and then leave it up for you if you have questions specific to them. But just quick, so I'll do quick overviews of each of the topics. I'll do more for the budget in total. In your board packet is a summary of the recommended projects and the recommended capital budget for fiscal year 26. It identifies a series, a handful of different projects. Dare I say, this is a skinny version, and I know that it's like a curse word now. It's a sort of skinny version of a normal capital budget process. So as you know, we have, in the last number of years, done a number of major capital projects for the Centers of Excellence projects, revenue bonds projects, et cetera, et cetera. And that as we're finishing them up, what we've been trying to do is do the minimum number of additional new types of projects possible, partly because we don't need to, right? We've done these major projects. There is one new project that's recommended, which is banner migration to cloud. You're going to hear more information about that coming in June. That's a really important project. Again, all of these budgets provide the capacity to do these projects so that actually when we get to them, in a number of cases, you actually then see the actual contract for that project. All the other projects listed, so that's the first one, all of the other projects are sort of what we call our normal life cycle type deferred maintenance projects. That's providing funding for routine things that we do on an annual basis. So when you see the code on the left-hand side that says location, and it's CW, that's college-wide, MC is multi-campus. That's probably the only thing that isn't self-explanatory in this, but those are both symbols, or they're sort of the symbolic location indicators of those life cycle type projects, college-wide projects. Again, most of these things are the normal deferred maintenance type stuff or replacing equipment that we do on a regular basis for IT. This is a relatively small version. This is about the smallest level version that we would have on an ongoing basis. And with that, I'll ask if the board has any questions related to this. This is consistent also with what we've been talking about in budgets, study sessions, and so forth.
Any questions for Dr. B or emotions?
Chair Taylor, I have a quick question.
Yes, go ahead.
I noticed the absence of the PSESI Center of Excellence. It's not on this list, and it had been in years past, and we had not done anything. Is that because there's no funding for it right now, so we're not considering it? And that's my first question. Why isn't it on the list? Is it because of money? And then the second question is there still a plan or a project to have that happen in the near future?
Yeah, correct on point one. So as we've talked about the reserve balance, as you've seen in the different reports we show, the reserve balance has been going down, and it's now in between the two levels, but it's getting closer to the low level threshold. So that there isn't sufficient funding to do a major project like PSESI. In addition, Chancellor Nassy mentioned the leadership retreat that we just had. One of the topics of conversation was planning for major projects to come in the future. That is one of the primary ones that's under discussion, how to fund it, how would we go about doing that, what the most likely scenario is, and I know that in your retreat we'll be talking about it as well because we're prepping for that, but it's like a carryover, and we have that. Talking about what the different mechanisms would be to do address some of these projects that we know we want to do in the future, but we don't have reserve balance to do now. So the other point that I wanted to make, thanks, I just remembered, was also that the scoping it out and sort of coming up with what that project would look like is still going on. So there's it's just not a major expense, and there's already money set aside for that. So talking with East Campus folks, working with a consultant to sort of conceptualize what that might look like and what the options are there, that is still ongoing. Doesn't need to have new funding because there's funding already, and that's underway. So we're still working on the planning. Planning is still continuing, but in terms of the major project costs, that's something that we have to identify in future years with additional funds to support it.
Thank you.
Any other questions or any motions on this item?
I'll move to accept the capital project plan for fiscal year 2026.
I'll second.
All right. Any discussion? No? All those in favor, say aye.
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 I'm in favor as well, so that passes unanimously. Moving on to 5.3. Dr. B, you're up again.
I'm just going to stay here. I'm not even going to sit down. This is the, actually remind me which one this is because I don't have numbers on them.
This is the
salaries.
fiscal year 26 employee salaries and wages.
Super. Okay, as consistent with what our conversations in various budget study sessions in the budget parameters, in front of you tonight is the recommendation for the compensation changes for the upcoming year. So this would then give us the formal authority then to go through and actually implement these compensation increases. Again, they're consistent with what we've talked with the board about. That is to say that there's a 3% increase to the adjunct faculty rate. There is a salary table adjustments for bands 1 through 4 for regular staff positions and grades 1 through 6 for regular faculty. They are different. The total, and I think that it specifies it in the, it does specify it in the board report. In addition, providing 1 year of experience for folks so that they're hitting their target based on the market for where they are in their grade. All of those things are things we've talked about with the board. And then the one new thing came out of conversations with AERC, the faculty subgroup of AERC, which is they asked if there's any way that we can increase what's called the faculty supplemental rate. This is if faculty are off contract and they're doing some special work that's approved, they get an hourly rate for that. It has not changed in a number of years, so they were recognizing that it's been the same flat rate for years. So the recommendation that we are putting in front of you is to increase that by $2 from $31 to $33. I know I've mentioned that to some of you. I just don't know if I've said it to all of the board. That came up. Again, what we do is we sort of find out what budget resources are available, and then conversations with AERC, this is what we're looking to do. They talk about some recommendations or priorities that they may have. This is the one that came later in the game that we added to the recommendations. So that's the only change from anything that we've talked about previously with the board. And with that, I'll stop talking and ask if there are questions about this item.
Any questions for
Mr.
Dr.
Chair, I have
Yes.
a question. For the supplemental pay rate, will there be a cap? And are there a lot of faculty off contract that would use this, or is this not?
It's, and you can see by the estimate that changing the rate doesn't change the total estimated overall cost. It's not used a lot. Things that you can think of if you want to get like your head around like some of the kinds of projects that it might be, like if you have a hiring committee that needs to happen over the summer and you want to have faculty representation, you would compensate the faculty on the hourly rate for the time they're on that committee, for the work that they're doing on that committee. So that's like, that's a simple example. That's one example. One of the things, though, that came up in the AERC conversation and everybody's in agreement about is there are some inconsistencies with how it's used. And so we want to work with AERC to clarify how the supplemental rate is used, what it's used for. Sometimes there's a flat rate that's associated with a job of a certain outside of contract job. Sometimes it's based on the hourly rate. So I think that it would behoove everybody to work together on common definitions for that. But it is not a huge financial impact.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Morales?
I move to approve the employee salary and wage rates for the fiscal year of 2026.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any further discussion or questions for Dr. B?
Chair Taylor.
Chair Taylor?
Board Member Randall and then Rial?
I defer.
Okay, Board Member Rial?
I just want to mention to Dr. David B. and Dr. Nassi and the governing board that, you know, the employees of Pima Community College had very few pay raises for the years 2013 through 2022. And the governing board has recognized that it's, you know, it costs more just to live. Prices are going up, inflation's going up. And so I'm really thankful that the college is making this a priority to compensate our employees in a way that makes them feel like their needs and their persons are being valued and lifted up. And so I just really want to say thank you to everybody for making this happen again.
Thank you. Board Member Randall?
I just want to say I very much support this modest increase, and I will be voting in favor of it. Thank you.
Yeah, I would just echo those same sentiments. You know, we've been talking through a lot of different scenarios budget-wise, and I've appreciated in the years that I've been on the board, at least I don't have the same history that Board Member Rial does, but this board has consistently supported providing continual compensation increases that follow either the steps or that help people get in line with market rates. And it's something that I'm fully in support of as well, that you all should be fairly compensated for the work that you're doing, and an acknowledgement of the increasing costs that we're all facing in the country that we live in, and know that we're doing everything we can to be able to make sure that this compensation adequately reflects the contributions that you make to the college. Was there any other comments, questions? No? All right, well then I'll call the vote. All those in favor of 5.3, please say aye.
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 I'm aye as well, so that passes unanimously. So moving on to 5.4, that's the publication of fiscal year 2026 proposed budget in preparation for the June 2025 public hearing and special board meeting to adopt the budget and set property tax rates and levies. So just a reminder, this is not approving those things, this is just approving the publication of them, the notifications for our June meeting. Was there anything anyone wanted to share on this one with us, Dr. B?
There is.
All right.
But I will do it quickly. So last but not least, this is actually the more important or the most important of the different actions that you just talked about, because this folds in all of the different actions that you just talked about. Kelly Services, the costs related to that, the employee compensation, and the capital budget. So as you know, we've talked in a number of different situations beginning in October or something like that with the board about setting priorities, establishing what the different estimates were going to be, addressing expense increases, that sort of thing in the budget. This is actually, so in May, we get what's called the preliminary budget proposal, which is that we put it all together and make it all work, put the square pegs in the square holes, et cetera, or whatever, try and hammer the other ones in. Because what we need to do is get approval in order to publish the budget in the state form. So that's the 3 pages with the landscape type pages, so that the taxpayers can see it, and then we can formally adopt the budget come June. I will point out that the budget is the parameters that the board has set. The budget that you have in front of you is consistent with all the parameters that you've set, with all the conversations that we've been having, and then with the items that you just approved. Also worth mentioning is the budget sets the absolute maximums. So there are things that we don't expect to ever hit the maximums for the budget, but that's the legal requirement. We have to set a budget that has the capacity to do anything we might ever need to do, which is why sometimes the capital is high, because we set the money aside for a capital project that might take 2 or 3 years. We also set aside reserves for contingencies that might happen. We set aside reserves for enrollment growth, so that if something happens, the economy turns down, and suddenly people are looking to get retrained in mass and our enrollment shoots up, that we would have the expenditure capability to address those students coming in. So we have built all of that into this budget. And then again, aligning it with the strategic plan, making sure that we have the funds to continue and finish up the capital projects, and then do the class comp that we've talked about. In addition, and this is also always worth noting, is that again, the board set and the chancellor set the goal for us to develop a budget that has no increase to tuition and service fee rates, and that it's a levy neutral property tax rate. So we're not increasing taxes, the property taxes, and then folds in the increase to recognize the employees for the great work they do for the college. And then, in order to make it all balance, as we've talked about, it has built in also reductions, continued reductions in positions through attrition. Again, and this is where I'm going to start blazing through some of the slides. You have these in front of you, and there's additional information. Happy to address any questions that you might have, or any additional information you want on any of these slides. But you can see between 2025 and 26, there's a pretty significant reduction in the budget. That's primarily because of capital and restricted funds. So some of our grants are going away. These are not related to what's the conversations with the federal government and what Joseph was talking about earlier tonight. That's not anticipating that something is going to happen. Right now, we're building it as like, without that anticipated, again, that's where you have the flexibility to do different things. We have the capacity to adjust to if we have these realities. But when I'm saying there's reductions in restricted funds, that's known grants that we're finishing up the grant and we won't need the capacity going forward. Similarly, we're finishing up the capital projects, we won't need the money. So those are what the primary reductions are. This just shows changes over time. You can see that we're still using up or building into the budget a fair chunk of college equity. That's fund balance. That's making that our days of cash on hand number continue to go down. Although in this case, as it's getting smaller and smaller, most of that now is what has already been set aside for capital projects, and then things that for like contingency reserves that we historically haven't spent. So some of that is just won't be spent money, but that is something that we have to continue to look at, because ideally you want that dark blue number at the top to be smaller. Moving on, this is the detail in the expenditures. Again, there's a pretty significant reduction when you look at the payroll costs. Again, the changes that you're seeing, the big changes that are on the green lines, those are the things I'm talking about. Reserves and capital expenses are being reduced pretty significantly. Changes are pretty moderate on the personnel side, and that's largely due to the fact that we're reducing positions through attrition. Lastly, and then I'll ask if there are questions, the process now is that if the board approves the budget for publication, we already have it set where it will be published May 23rd, May 30th. That follows the statutory requirements. We have to do a press release as well. And then that sets the stage for us to have the public hearing and special meeting on June 9th. Because we're not increasing the taxes, we do not have to do a truth in taxation notice, and we do not have to do a truth in taxation hearing. So it'll be a far simpler process than what we've done in the recent past. It's sort of a half of what you have to do. Obviously, it's far less controversial when you're not increasing the taxes on the taxpayers. All right, with that, I'll ask if there are any questions about any of the information we've provided. If you want me to walk through the state budget forms, happy to put some of the highlights together. If you see, for example, that property taxes are going up, recall that they're going up because we do get additional growth in new property taxes. It's not because the tax rate is going up, right? So there are some little nuances, but and again, happy to go through those with you a little bit just to hit the most significant items. Otherwise, I know it's a late night, we're tired, and we've been through it all. So,
any questions for Dr. B? No? Well, not there. How about a motion?
I'll move the item.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? No? I don't have any discussion per se, but just a comment to, a moment for my colleagues and I to, and with all of your support, to, I guess, colleagues in a general sense, everybody that's worked to put together this budget. But, in the environment that we're in now, I think it's pretty remarkable we're able to do what we've just talked about being able to do at the same time that we're not increasing student tuition and not asking property tax or property owners in Pima County to pay any more money, especially if you think about what's happening around us with other political entities and looking to raise taxes. And we're not only not raising taxes, not only not asking students and their families to pay more money, but we're not making any reductions to the services that they're receiving from the college as well. So, I think that's a tremendous testament to your leadership, Dr. B, in terms of putting this all together, to Chancellor Nassie's leadership. And I just want to thank all my fellow board members for their support. I think in this environment that we're in now that seems to be characterized by instability and disruption, that we're working in a way that is providing increased stability in people's lives and working against that trend. So I'm proud of what we're doing with this. So with that,
Chair Taylor?
Yes, please.
Thank you. I would also like to thank David B. and his group of people that are doing all of this work. They had a couple of different forums to talk about the budget with college employees over the last 2 or 3 or 4 weeks, and they were very well attended. So that means that, you know, our coworkers, people that we work with, are interested in knowing the ins and outs of this. And I just really appreciate Dr. B taking the time to answer everybody's questions and do those presentations. So thank you, Dr. B.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Board Member Real. Any other comments, or I'll call the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 I'm in favor as well, so that one passes unanimously as well. So we'll move on to the last item, which is 6.1, Section 6, and then I'll note for everyone in 6.1 that we also have a notice in there about possible amendment of our bylaws that'll happen during a special meeting in our retreat, currently planned for June 5th. So the meeting notice in the agenda will be posted at least 24 hours prior to that meeting. And then I'll also add, following up on the Chancellor's report earlier, that we'll include in our June meeting an invitation for AARC and the employee representative groups to present a year recap, and then on an ongoing basis, a quarterly opportunity to present to the board to share relevant information from their work. Is there any other requests for agenda items?
Chair Taylor?
Yes, Board Member Randall.
I was moved by Chancellor Nassie's mention earlier about high school outreach, and then he brought up middle school outreach. At one time, Pima College used to also offer little specialized week-long summer camps for children. They were pretty cool. I have no idea. There's probably a reason why they don't exist anymore. I would potentially love to see us discuss that, learn more about it, and hey, you know, we can start outreaching to the littles, potentially.
Yeah,
Thank
maybe
you.
a study session agenda or something. They do. So Dr. Rourke is saying there are some, but there are not as many as there used to be. So maybe in the greater context of reaching out to K-12 and maybe even younger, and to have maybe it's a study session or something on that evolving strategy. I know you've been making a lot of changes, Chancellor, in that regard. Any other future agenda items?
Chair Taylor?
Yes.
I was wondering, I was talking with my older son. He's a organic chemistry professor at University of Connecticut, and he was talking to me about he takes his salary 9 months. He's a 9-month employee, but he takes it spread out over 12 months. And I said, God, Pascal, you're smarter than that. Why don't you take all your money and invest it so you can be making money on your money instead of, letting the college keep your money, and they're not giving you interest on it, right? Now, mind you, I did the same thing when I was an employee. I always did that 9 over 12. But I was wondering if there's like a work study group or something like that we can look at some of these issues affecting our different groups, the different employee groups in the college, to see if we can improve the lot for all of us. It was brought up again at one of those budget forums about somebody transferred position. They're in a different area now, and they're concerned that they won't get the salary increase because, they haven't been there for more than a year, even though they've been an employee of the college for 33 years or something crazy. So I'm wondering if we have something like that at the college where people can brainstorm ways to improve what we already do to make it a better place for everybody.
Okay, thank you. Maybe we can get Board Member Real some information on employee support programs, and then perhaps in the context of the AERC and employee representative group presentations, they can share if they have additional needs or anything around so things like what she's talking about.
Sure, we'll have to digest that and think what it looks like in terms of the AERC. Sure.
Yes.
In a similar format, I would like to suggest that we maybe have a conversation about Pima's role in being an incubator now for startups and entrepreneurs. I know SATEC did a phenomenal job with their first expo. I don't know if it's a, what's the word I'm thinking? Not learning session.
Study session?
Thank you, yes. I don't know if it's that or if it's a conversation of them coming to present to the board, but I would love to see Pima take a deeper dive and more intentional approach into incubating and being able to provide our students the opportunity to be entrepreneurs and showcasing the startup and the technology innovation that exists within Pima students and staff.
Great. Take that.
Sure, maybe a study session, we can set that up. I think that where we can have a discussion would be good.
Sure. Anything else, requests for future agenda items? No? Well, not hearing any, then that reaches the end of our agenda. So we are adjourned. Thank you all for sticking with us. I appreciate it.